Hi, everybody. We are live with our social media takeover. So, thank you for joining us for our social media takeover with Kimberly and Kuryakin Rucker. Thank you guys for being here with us today.
Thank you for having us.
We talk all the time, and so we're just letting people in to a lot of our conversations that we already have. But just for those people who don't know, you are here for the 2020 Untruth Virtual Summit that's taking place October 7th and 8th. And Eric and I just thought it would be a really great idea to let people get to know who you are outside of what you do. We know that the presentation is going to be fire, but this gives people a chance to see what they're going to miss if they don't sign up October 7th and 8th. And so I'm Felithia Charlton.
And I'm Eric Charlton. And before we get to hear from Casey, I'm going to call them Casey and Kim, just want to remind everyone what Untruth is. It is a process by which we acknowledge and we tell an truth, and we release the lies that so easily binds us. So I hope everyone gets to sign up and watch the conference, but I'm gonna have you to introduce yourselves and we're gonna get untruth.
I'm Kuryakin Rucker. Everyone calls me KC. And I am an EEO Diversity and Inclusion Officer at a utility company here in Huntsville. And I also own my own management and consulting firm, Rucker Management Consultants, www.ruckermanagementconsultants.com. And then my beautiful wife.
I'm Kimberly Rucker. I am a licensed attorney here in Alabama. I spent 10 years with a law firm doing employment litigation, practicing mostly in federal courts. And in 2018, I left the law firm and started a career doing legal and compliance work for a federally qualified health center here in Huntsville, Alabama.
Great. So we can gather that you both are smart. Just a little bit. And what'd you say, Casey?
I said we do all right.
You do all right. Yeah, so it's important. We just want the people to know a little bit about your background and what you do. I know you get a lot of questions. You do consulting as a lawyer. Both are lawyers, which is very interesting as a power couple to have two lawyers that not only work but own their own businesses. But that's all well and good. I want to know who y'all really are from behind the scenes. And so we're going to get untruth today with Kim and KC. All right. So the first question is, how did you meet and how long have you been married? Two questions.
Do you want to tell the story?
So it's very interesting. Casey and I met on Facebook. We actually had been circling each other like this for more than 20 years before we met. We almost went to each other's respective college. I attended Alabama State University. Casey is from Detroit and considered attending Alabama State University. He did attend Florida A&M for about a year, and I considered going to Florida A&M. That was my second choice college. So we've had we almost met in our lives. And it turns out that we have a mutual friend who's also a friend of yours, Javon Brooks, who posted all manner of evil on his Facebook page one day when he said he hates football. And Casey and I are big football fans. And so we both came to his page to tell him what a crazy person he was, that he hates football. And one thing led to another. We started talking to each other on the post, and our conversations on the post went from the post to inbox for about 2 weeks.
He slid in your DMs, Kim?
He slid in my DMs, girl.
She let me.
And then we text for about 2 weeks. And Casey was living in Michigan, in Canton, Michigan at the time, because he's originally from Detroit. And I was here in Huntsville. And we decided that we'd meet in the middle and go on a date. So in October of 2013,
Yep.
of 2013, we met in Louisville, Kentucky, and went out to dinner, and the rest is history. We've been together ever since. And we finally got married on Valentine's Day in 2015. So we've been married approaching the 6-year mark now.
Mhm.
Wow. So you guys debunked the stereotype of meeting online, that it can't work.
Yeah, I mean, I think meeting online is like meeting anybody anywhere else.
Mhm.
You can be your authentic self, or you cannot be your authentic self. And it's so funny that it just was like godly timing, because Casey and I had both just become Facebook friends with this mutual friend maybe a week before we met online. And so the timing was just right. It was time. It was meant for us to finally collide after having circled each other for 2 decades. And I don't think it matters where you meet. It's about how you meet. And by that, I mean who you are when you meet. How you show up in the meeting is what's important.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And Kim, you took the thought right out of my head, in terms of, even though you guys had known each other, known of each other for 20 years, it was God's timing that allowed you guys to meet just at the right time.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Okay, next question is, what are your love languages? To the both of you.
Go ahead.
Mine are physical touch and acts of service. Those are my two primary love languages.
What are mine, honey?
Uh-oh.
Gifts
Does
and
it?
words of affirmation.
How do you know that?
Well, while we were preparing to get married, we did do premarital counseling with our church. One of the pastors of our church, the man who married us, actually, and he suggested that we read the 5 love languages and determine what our love languages were, because he said that that's a really important way to make sure that we stay connected, is to know how the other receives love best. And so that's what we did. We decided to do that work, and it's worked out so far, I think.
Yeah, but you know what? It still worked, at least for me, because I know that Casey's love language is not gifts, but mine is. And so, like, his birthday is tomorrow, and I always want to show him his importance and recognize him by gift giving. But I have to remind myself that that's not really what demonstrates that to him, and speak to him and acknowledge him in a way that is aligned with his love language. And sometimes it's a challenge, because I'm like, but I want to give you something, but he doesn't receive that the same way I do. And so I have to speak to him the way he receives love best.
I think that's really important, Kim, because I know for us, we learned our love languages later in marriage. And he's talking about some but not our session. We learned our lessons later. And I think it's really great that you talk about marriage beyond the meeting. And so that's really what you're sharing with us in this untruth is, we know we love each other, but learning how to love each other is just as important. And so thank you guys for sharing that. So my question to you is, think about an area in your marriage where you thought you were stuck. How did you move forward from pausing to pressing on? Think about an area in your marriage where you thought you were stuck. How did you move forward from pausing to pressing forward?
Hmm.
It could be work related, it could be personal, whatever.
I can actually think of a couple.
Mm-hmm.
One, parenting.
Yes.
I think we hit a point. So in our household, Casey and I are have been married almost 6 years. We now have 3 children, and we're a blended family. So um, he came into the marriage with children, and we had to really learn how to how I should incorporate myself into the structure for discipline
Mhm.
and authority with the children. And I think if we're honest, we made some mistakes
Yeah,
in doing that.
I don't think we got it right initially,
Mhm.
because I really put Kim forward, because they're my 2 children from my previous marriage, and I really wanted for Kim to be able to establish herself as the authority figure, as an authority figure, and for the kids to know that she had my full support, and they weren't going to pull the divide and conquer thing. So I really pushed her forward on discipline issues, and I probably should not have. And that was a lesson learned. I think we had the first, I guess, what, 2 3 years,
2 years.
we really had a lot of conflict in the home, because I think the children were in part a little confused. I think in part just a little resistant to this person that we know her, yeah, we love her, but she's not our mama,
Mhm.
and she was taking the lead on household discipline. So you didn't clean your room, so now you're grounded, and those sorts of things. Um, and really, I probably should have been still the primary and the one that was much more forward, while kind of more slowly integrating Kim into the disciplinary kind of framework. But that was a point that we really had to
Figure it out.
figure it out and push through it. Lots of family talks around the table,
And counseling.
counseling, mediation. I had to try to play mediator between the kids and Kim, because, as the father, of course, I would love and I respect and I honor my wife, but I also love and value and treasure my children, and I know them.
Mhm.
I know them in a way that Kim doesn't, and I know Kim in a way that the children don't know.
That's good.
So it puts you in, it's a little bit of an awkward place, but it's the place where you have to be the mediator. You have to find a way to bridge the gap, because the thing that I was absolutely not interested in doing was either losing my children emotionally, mentally, or losing my marriage.
Mhm.
And so that was not an option. So we had to find a way to get through it.
And I think at the end of the day, what we learned, or one of the things that I learned about myself, was that I hadn't fully opened up to just loving and embracing the kids. I love the children from day one, but I also needed to be willing to love them in a way that meant I could get hurt by them.
Mhm.
And that's was hard for me, because it means opening your heart unconditionally and in a way that things can happen in families where you get your feelings hurt. And it was a little difficult for me to say, okay, I'm just going to be completely vulnerable with these kids and take the chance that they could reject me. They could, any number of things could happen. But that's really what it took for us to cross that hurdle, was for them to know that I was as invested in them emotionally as I was asking them to be invested and trust me, as an authority figure in their lives, and a disciplinarian, and a a bonus parent. And once we kind of worked through those issues, I mean, it was like night and day. we have a totally different situation in our house now, and we had to put in the work to kind of change the trajectory of where we were going, and be willing to say as parents, hey, we made a misstep, and
Yeah.
we need to go back, and we need to talk to the kids, and we explained it to them, and we kind of helped them understand why things had worked the way that worked, and acknowledge to them, we think that there are some mistakes that we made here, and we want to correct them. And it worked out beautifully after that. So
That's
awesome.
awesome.
And now we've got a new addition to our home, and it's a new dynamic, new things that we are adjusting to, both us as a couple, and also the young lady who's now part of our family, and you know her very, very well. So, but we're going through that process. We're learning each other every day. We're learning something new about each other, I think.
but we know a lot more about how to navigate it now,
Yeah,
having gone through what we went through before.
right.
And that leads us right into where we were going to go with the next question. Which one are you going to ask?
Was going to ask, before I ask the question, I was just going to say what you guys brought up about having a unique situation of a blended family. I think a lot of a lot of married couples can understand that, and also the difference with parenting as well. So if you guys get stuck in your marriage, in those times when you guys get stuck in your marriage, do you do the same thing now that you used to do in those areas?
Because you talked about parenting, so was there other areas?
Excuse me. Let's see. Have we ever been stuck in the marriage? I don't know if I don't know if I call it stuck, but I would say that one of the areas where we've had some of our biggest challenges have been in finances.
Okay.
Because we've seen periods of time where we've had transition with jobs. And when Casey he moved here from Michigan. He had to move by a certain time because both of the kids were transitioning, making major transitions in school. Our son was going from elementary to middle school, and our daughter was going from middle school to high school. And we wanted them to be able to make that transition here in Alabama, where they were going to be for the rest of their educational period. And so when he moved here, he didn't have a job here yet. And so I was a, single woman in my 30s, living my best life, single, doing it up at home. And I went from a household of one to a household of four, like overnight. And, we really had to kind of figure things out financially. How do we support our family in a situation where he hadn't yet found a job? And we made some sacrifices and adjustments, and we got through that period. And then we found ourselves, Casey was working for a company, and the company went bankrupt, and it basically cut our income in half. And when you get used to life in a certain place, cutting your income by 50% is a hard hit. And we were getting ready for our daughter to graduate from high school and go to college. And so we had college expenses to consider. And I think my initial response was the meltdown, like, oh God, what are we gonna do?
Yeah, she cried.
I cried.
She cried.
And I think that was a point where we had to make a decision about who we were going to be in our marriage when it came to hard times. One, I stopped crying, and I came back to him and was like, I didn't want him to feel bad about the fact that the company went bankrupt. There's nothing you can do about that. I know, sorry, but but we also had to make a decision. Faith is a big part of our relationship, big part of our family, and a big part of our finances. And we made a decision early in our marriage that we were going to be tithers. And, you know, those were some points in our marriage where cutting that tithe check was hard because you're looking at what you have to do and what you have to do it with.
Right.
And I think it was a pivotal point for us to make the decision that we were going to keep being tithers, that we were going to trust God with how to get us through the situation. And, you know, and it's kind of hard to explain except that the principles of God work, because in those times we never skipped a beat, we never missed a bill, our daughter went to college and we never missed paying the things that we needed to pay for her, and we went on vacation and we did everything that we wanted to do before. And part of what I think we learned in that time was that God has purpose for our income even outside of tithing, that we needed to be more mindful of and more prayerful about, that we don't just make money to pleasure ourselves, but that we have an obligation to be givers and to represent him in our giving outside of just tithing. And so our prayer became, you know, God, restore what we've lost and help us to make new decisions and never forget you in the decisions that we make about how we use money.
Right.
And so almost 2 years later,
Almost 2 years.
he restored, and we reclaimed everything that had been lost during that time period, as far as making up the money that the change in our income and then some. And it's just been a blessing to see the hand of God work in our finances and to demonstrate to us that trusting him with that is the right thing for us to do.
Right.
Awesome. Wow.
So KC, Kim talked about how she felt during that period, but as you were the man who didn't have the job and who just, you know, was transitioning, how did you navigate from there to here?
It was really tough because, you know, that's one of the things I pride myself on, is being a provider, taking care of, you know, my family. In the 3 years before we got together, I was a single father. Well, I was a single father since 2006, but I had primary custody of my children from 2010 and still through today.
Wow.
But, you know, that was the one thing that I always did, was work. I've worked since I was 13 years old. So not being employed, you know, it's a huge hit to your psyche, because that's in part where you derive some of your self-image, your self-concept, is through what you do for a living. So so there were more than a few days of, you know, what am I going to do? What are we going to do? How's this going to work? You know, and applying for job after job after job after job after job, jobs that I should have received 15 times 10 years ago, because that's how long ago I was, you know, initially qualified for them. But just, you know, having to be reminded that, you know, God's timing is perfect. And so letting go of the frustration was really a challenge for me, because I am a person who is used to making things happen, whether it's in my professional life, whether it's in my personal life. You know, one of the funny things is the day we met on Facebook, after we had swapped some posts back and forth a few times, one of our friends said, "Hey guys, you know, what are y'all doing? This is crazy." And I was like, "Listen, I'm trying to get a stepmother for these children. Y'all better back off." and and we did that. So, I'm used to being someone who can make things happen, who can, when I see something I want, I go get it, I pursue it, I chase it down. And so it was hard to deal with not getting the opportunities I thought that I should have gotten. And go ahead.
No, go ahead. What all I was going to say, Casey, was I just appreciate the two of you sharing that from both perspectives, because right now we know that before before Corona and COVID hit, people had issues, but a lot of people have experienced work-related issues and pay cuts and time constraints and that sort of thing. So I think this is an important message of how to navigate through that from both perspectives. And then I like the fact that of learning how to give grace during that time, which is what you to yourself, Casey, and then Kimberly to your husband. So I think that this is just important. And I know that you guys are going to get more into that in the summit, which I cannot wait for.
Well, and we are. And I think an important thing that I learned as his wife during that period was that God had to remind me that he is not my provider. KC is not my provider. My provider is God. God is my provider. He's his provider. He's our provider. So I had to not, it wasn't good, wasn't going to be good for me to try to put pressure on him to fix a situation that he didn't even create. And the best thing that I could do was pray for him and support him and let him know that my love for him didn't change because of a job situation. And those things were true. My feelings about him did not change because of that. And also, we started having to navigate another new difficult space during that time period because I started dealing with a health crisis. And I don't keep any secret that I deal with kidney disease and I'm on dialysis and have been for the last year. And it just, some things that look like they're meant to harm you are meant to help you, because in the period when I started having to be on dialysis, I needed his help. And if he had been working the job that he had before, he wouldn't have been available to me the way I needed him.
Wow.
And it just worked. He was there to help me navigate the newness of having to do it. I needed emotional support. I needed physical help. And it was just like, as soon as that kind of leveled out for me, then it was time for his new job came about. He had started a business. He had started working another job. All those things just kind of came together. And I had to keep reminding myself, the way God does things sometimes is just different from the way we think and do things. And so I'm actually thankful for the time that he wasn't working a 9 to 5, because it helped us navigate the new space with my health. So I appreciate
Wow.
that.
Wow, that's huge. Oh,
We can talk to you guys for hours, but what's the title of your presentation?
for the UNTRUTH Summit.
Our presentation is called Never Break, Forging Through for Worse. And so we're going to talk a lot about how we as a married couple, and even before we were married, made decisions to forge through things that sometimes brings division in relationships. Everything from finances to health issues to just perspective, just some of the things that we've learned about perspective and how to show grace to your partner in marriage. So that's what we're going to talk about.
Yay.
And so what do you think? we know that these are untruths that people don't want to talk about. Everybody wants to take a pretty picture, say that they're doing well, and then keep shutting out. But we have to honestly give people permission to be vulnerable and walk in their truth. And you shared a lot of truth today that I know people will be blessed by, because at the end of the day, we want to honor our promises. And like you said, the title is, not for better or for worse, but forging
through for worse.
For worse. So we forget about that. We remember the for better, but we don't remember the for worse. So I know you're going to give some people some amazing information. What do you want them to walk away with after they hear you?
I think the primary message is you can get through it. A lot of people sometimes just they feel overwhelmed. They feel like this is not going to end. It's not going to get better. And so we may as well chuck it. We may as well just, I'm going to do me, you do you, we go our separate ways. But you can get through
Excuse me.
there is a light at the end of the tunnel, to use an overworked cliche, but it does end. And you can get back to for better.
I love it.
I like that.
I love you can get back to for better. And I think that's just an amazing way to wrap this up. Before we wrap it up, Kimberly and Casey, do you guys have an untruth question for us?
So,
That was quick.
I always have a question for you, girl. I was just going to ask, in your marriage, what's the biggest kind of untruth that's come to light for you all as a couple?
Wow.
I can answer it for me, and then of course you want to hear from
Of
Mr.
course.
Charlton.
Oh, yeah.
But for me, I think that when I say we're high school sweethearts and we've been married for 18 years, you immediately get that people put a fairy tale on it, that this doesn't exist.
Nope.
And so I think that just learning, and I had put a fairy tale on it in the beginning of it, believing that, Eric was my knight in shining armor and he was going to make everything perfect. Put a lot of pressure on him to be perfect for me and love me when I still wasn't honest about the fact that I was still learning to love myself. And so I think that that's the biggest untruth for me is it has been amazing, but it's had its ups and downs, and it's been on and up for a long time, but the downs were hard. And we still have to remember those times so that we can still learn how to connect and treat each other with respect and operate in love. And so I think that would be one of the biggest untruths for me, is that understanding that even though we're high school sweethearts and we've been married for 18 years, we still are a real couple who deal with real issues.
Wow.
Drop
You
the mic.
preached. Go ahead, Eric.
I think there's so many, but I think for me over the years is allowing Felicia to be Felicia, not trying to put her in a box, not try to contain her, allow her to be who she is. Now, with that being said, that still creates some friction, but not trying to put her in a category that I want her to be in, but allowing her to flourish, allowing her to be who she is, so she has no regrets. So it's been tough for me to learn over the years, but it's better and better because of that.
Great. You know what? And it's interesting that in our relationship, just for anybody who doesn't know, Felicia and I have known each other for 20 plus years. I think Eric and I are a lot alike, and Felicia and Casey are a lot alike because you all are the more creatives. I'm not the creative. He's the more creative. And when you're not the creative, you really do have to sit on your hands sometimes and say, let them be,
Yes.
let them do this because they need it, and it can be tough, but it's, but I love to see them when they're flourishing. So I know you've enjoyed watching Felicia flourish, and I also enjoy seeing Casey flourish in his creative space.
That's Kimberly, awesome. That is a beautiful way to end this Untruth social media takeover with Casey and Kimberly Rucker. Y'all, we just got Untruth today.
We just got Untruth.
Hello. I'm also getting Untruth with wines. Oh, y'all didn't we can high five it too. We can high five. We're just grateful for you joining us today. I cannot wait till they see your session. It's a part of my story because you said it was kind of based on that song by John Legend. And so you guys join us October 7th and 8th. You can register. The link will be in the comments. If you want more of this for real about marriage and getting Untruth, join Kimberly and Casey for their session. We'll see you soon. Thanks for getting Untruth with us. Bye, everybody.
Oh my God.
Bye.
Bye.